Hi, welcome to tonight's meeting of the Finance and Ops Committee meeting. It is Monday, September 8th, and we are in the Nashua North Boardroom, and it is 6:03, and we have a big crowd tonight, which is very exciting. So I am here, and Mr. Claffey,
Here.
Ms. Lopez, here. We also have Ms. Bishop and Ms. Raymond and Ms. Gilio, and we have Dr. Andrade and Mr. Gray. And you can go ahead, Mr. Gray. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. So welcome, everyone. We'll go through the presentation first, and then there's just a couple small agenda items on tonight's finance and operations agenda after the presentation. So Dr. Andrade and I are actually going to tag team this presentation. I'll just preface it by saying there's a lot of numbers and a lot of data in here. We're hopeful that this will be informational. If you have questions at the end, please let us know. If for some reason we don't have the answer tonight, I will be more than happy to definitely get anybody an answer that they're looking for.
Mr. Gray, can we have copies of the presentation either afterwards or later on this week? Maybe Ms. Cantella can email them to us?
Yep, absolutely. After tonight's meeting, we'll go ahead and when the minutes are posted, we'll go ahead and have it posted. And then we actually talked about having it updated on our website as well, where some of our budget presentations are.
All right, that's great. Thank you.
Awesome. All right, so just super high level, kind of a summary page here first. Hopefully everybody can see that up on the screen. So the two big topics that we really have been talking about as a school district is contract services related to special education and tuition out of district. So contract service expenses have drastically increased over the past 4 years. So in FY22, we had about $33,000 in contract service special education in our operating budget and special revenue. In fiscal year 26, I'm saying we're already aware of roughly $4 million related to contract services and special education. With this being said, this is non-ESSER money. This is non-IDEA, which is the federal grant. So a couple things to think about. How did we get here? What caused this, right? So as we saw through the budget presentation, we here in Nashua, and I'm sure other districts have seen some of these changes, but we have seen a changing student demographic. We saw that our overall special education student population is increasing, although our overall student enrollment is decreasing. Prior to COVID, there was less difficulties hiring some of these special educators, some of these intensive needs teachers. So that is definitely one of the struggles we are currently seeing. And as folks are aware, we do need to go ahead and hire this staff in order to provide the services that our students need. ESSER funds are gone. I kind of chuckle, but maybe it's not a chuckle in the sense of there's no ESSER money tree anymore. So these are some rough estimates of in ESSER 1, we spent about $500,000 related to contract services. ESSER 2, it was an estimate of $2.3 million, and ESSER 3, about $2 million. So I think some things to think about here in Nashua. The city of Nashua has received increased revenue. I'll kind of go over some of that in the presentation in a little bit. State adequacy aid has increased, which has helped us with some of these financial impacts. So in fiscal year 22, from a total revenue, intergovernmental revenue standpoint, We received $4.4 million. When I say intergovernmental revenue, think of that as like the state revenue that's coming in. Out of that revenue in fiscal year 22, we went ahead and received 40.3 million in adequacy aid. So 90.8% of total intergovernmental revenue came from our state adequacy aid. An estimate for fiscal year 26, which is what we are currently in, we are showing about 66.5 million in intergovernmental revenue. 64.6 million of that is coming from adequacy aid, which is a 97.1% of overall governmental revenue. So I just want to kind of pause there. I think there was some talk throughout the year, and I had shared some of the adequacy aid numbers with folks. We're definitely seeing adequacy aid go up. We are seeing some of the catastrophic aid and special education aid go down. But if we look at the total pie of intergovernmental revenue, you'll see that year over year, we're actually seeing an increase. And I'll get into that on a revenue slide later in the presentation. Was there a question?
Yeah, of course. I was just wondering, do you guys see any cause for concern in the fact that we're receiving more money in adequacy aid and less money in catastrophic special education aid, that at some point they might, just changing the way they change the formula means that perhaps there won't be as much money for special education in the future?
I think if we looked at special education or catastrophic aid and adequacy aid together, because we are getting a little bit more in adequacy aid based off of our special education population, right? So that's why I'm saying, yes, the adequacy aid has increased. The catastrophic special ed aid has decreased, but in total, we are actually receiving more money in the intergovernmental revenue at this time.
Go ahead.
So I guess my question is, for the student tuition, what's the breakdown for that? And then what's the state adequacy aid, being that we're talking about the separation of those twos? One has gone down and one has gone up. So I know that it's built together here, but I was wondering, what is the actual difference? Because, I'm having trouble following the whole slide, because if contract service expense have dramatically increased in the past 4 years, but we only have two numbers, what was it in between? And these are questions that I'm sure the public's gonna have, because going from 33,000 to 4 million, what was the gap in between?
Sure.
How can we?
I was going to say too, so this is just a high-level summary. There's a ton of detail through the next, 14 slides that are ahead that I think will help alleviate some of the questions you're asking. But I think just off the bat, so two things to remember. So yes, we're talking contract services and we're talking tuition at a district. And then we're also talking about revenue. Go ahead, Dr. Andre.
So we'll get to it. It's one of the last slides, and I emailed you the presentation just right now, but it'll be made public afterwards. But one of the last slides we'll get into the answer. But if you looked at special education aid in FY 2022, it was 1.78 million. And then FY 2025, it's just over $1 million. So it's a decrease of $700,000 in the state special education aid. But state adequacy aid in that same time increased from 40 million to 59 million last year. So I will take a decrease of $700,000 for an increase of 19 million. Right. And so the other aspect is, again, when is adequacy aid coming in? And we have to remember, special education aid, when that comes in, it's a year, it's a year behind, and that revenue goes directly to the city. Unlike, as we, kind of discuss, in other districts, that state special education aid in like Hollis Brookline goes directly to the school district. This aid goes to the city, and then they use it in their revenue calculations of how much comes back to the school department. So that $1 million in special education does not go into our coffers. It goes into the city in their calculations, and then what comes back to the school department. So that's a revenue stream, even though it's earmarked for the school district. It goes, same thing with state adequacy aid, it goes to the city, and then the city talks about their overall revenue coming in and how much comes back to the school department.
Heather?
So just to follow up on that, because Nashua's a little bit different than the rest of the state and how they handle it, and my understanding is that the city uses part of that money to pay for the benefits of the school employees, instead of sending it all to us and then having us manage all of that. Is that correct?
Yeah, so
And then
you look
there's
at
like the bonding and all that stuff,
yeah,
right?
so
it's
if you look at the totality of our, just for simple numbers, right? So we'll just call it $200 million budget. And then you look at the revenue sources coming in, and there's local revenue, which is directly from,
property taxes.
right. So it's what comes from the state, what comes from the local, and then what's, in our operating budget, it's also what comes from the federal government, right? So we should be looking at the totality of those three funding sources or special revenue and breaking it out. What is not clear when we present our budget is we do not break out the adequacy aid into a pie chart. How much are we getting from the federal government and IDEA, Title I, Title II, Title III, IDEA, et cetera? When we ask for our budget and we talk about it, we only talk about the local operating budget. And what's unclear and not transparent is the adequacy aid goes to the city. And then the city just says, here's your $200 million budget. It's your 140 plus the benefits.
Got it.
And then they back out the adequacy aid and how much they have to contribute. So they would take out the $60 million and say, we owe now $140 million from local aid.
Got it. And that's because we're a division of the city and non-independent district.
Correct.
Okay.
Oh, yeah, go ahead, Shawanda.
So my question would be, so in a year later, the money comes back from the federal government. It comes to the city of Nashua after we've already spent the whole budget for the year before?
So adequacy aid comes into us, I believe it's twice a year.
Okay, like what months?
I would have to get you the specifics on the months.
Okay.
Special education is the year in the rear, not the adequacy aid.
Okay, so just special education. Is that,
That's the calculation. So they would look at how much we spent in FY '25 to start calculating of what comes into the following year.
Okay, I'm sorry, Crystal. I did, Mr. Ray, I did say that we could go through the whole thing, and then I interrupted you, and why don't you go through the rest of it? I promise I won't ask any more questions.
No, that's okay. So just a couple last bullet points. Again, so through the budget process, I think what we'll have to remember, especially for fiscal year '27 and as we move forward, how are we going to reflect these increases, right? We know that these expenses are increasing. We know that the revenue streams can be unpredictable. So how are we truly going to continue to plan for this, I think is an important message. Just the last two real quick things is, how do we partner with the city? We as the school and the city both need to be prepared for some of these budget constraints that are coming based off of these increases that we've seen from the last 3 to 5 year trend. And then I know there were a couple questions prior to just around audits as a whole. We as a district go through state, federal, student activity, and food service audits every single year. We are up to date on them, and I have a slide later in the presentation where I'll just give some more specifics related to the audits. This slide, real quick, everybody saw it through our budget presentation, but just a friendly reminder, what does our student enrollment look like versus our teachers and our FTEs for prior year? And then probably more importantly, our student enrollment distribution. So as we've seen year over year, our student population has our student population has decreased, but our special education and our ELL students population has increased.
Just to,
Yep.
yeah, I was just going to say, just to call it out on the difference of special education students over from 2014 to 2024, it's an increase of 300 special education students. And then our ELL population is almost an increase of 900. 2014, 15, and 2024.
We have a number of students who are dual identified, so where they are both English language learners and they have IEPs. Which bucket are they in on the chart?
I wish we actually distinguished, we need to add another column, but I can't speak where they would be.
Thanks.
All right. So just some high-level numbers real quick. Out-of-district student enrollment. So from 21-22, we had about 108 students that were in our out-of-district programs. 23 to 24, we had 124 students. Last year, 24-25, we had 129 students. And as of today, which is the data point, we have 90 students who are currently in out-of-district programs. With that being said, it's only September. We've had some students move out or age out. We've also brought some students back in. So I do expect these numbers to fluctuate this year, but as of today, September 9th, we're seeing about 90 students currently in out-of-district placements. So what are our funding sources? We talk about operating budget. We talk about IDEA, which is our federal grant for special education. We go ahead and talk about special revenue. So we have a special education special revenue account that we can only use for special education costs and expenses. And then we also have state revenue that comes in. All right. So let me walk through all these numbers that are on screen. So this slide specifically only talks about special education costs related to contract services. So back in 2022, this is where that $30,000 original budget came from. So this is operating budget and special revenue. As we can see, there's trends going up. In 2025, we went ahead and had 1.6 million in our budget for special education contract services. And for this year, as of now, we have $2.2 million budgeted. There is a drastic increase, as we can all see on screen. And as I mentioned earlier in the slides, based off of the summary sheet, you'll see that the years that this took a drastic increase really were the COVID years, were the ESSER years. So last year, we went ahead in fiscal year 25, we actually ended up spending $3.5 million in contract services. So we were $1.9 million over budget. With that being said, how were we able to pay that 3.5 million? And I think through finance and ops in some of the board meetings, we saw a lot of transfers, right? So again, when we contract service these folks, we can go ahead and move their wage money to offset some of the contract services. I personally like, you want me to go back? I was gonna say, I personally like this chart. I think it's not, there's not so many numbers on the page, but I think it definitely tells the story, right? So back in 2022, that's where we had the $30,000 budgeted. Your blue line is your budget, your orange line is your actual expenses. So we've started to budget more, but our expenses have drastically increased. And again, during 23 and a little bit of 24, that's when we had the ESSER money. So we're seeing a drastic increase, substantial, in contract services related to special education. Dr. Andre, were you going to add a couple things?
No, you got it.
Okay. Yep, go ahead.
So, because I don't have it's not letting me log into the PowerPoint that you sent. So I don't have them right next to each other. Does that corresponding huge jump in cost match a huge jump in students identified? Or is it that the services suddenly became more expensive, or that suddenly there weren't people to do the services? And that's like, I'm trying to figure out the capitalism part that made these services jump that much.
I think the capitalism started before then, right? So this is just operating budget. So as we mentioned, it was $2 million in ESSER that where the contracted services were charged to, and not the operating budget.
Right, but
So if you looked at the totality of, again, how much we spent in contract services and included ESSER funds, we were probably still close to the $3 million.
right. So I guess my question is, but we weren't, were we really close to the 3 million in 2022?
So add in the $2 million from ESSER.
ESSER. Oh, okay,
And
so it's
now you're
not,
at, right? So now you're at 22,030,000,
Got it.
right? So,
so we'd have to go even further back to see what the pre-COVID, pre-ESSER grant money costs were for special education.
right, and how many vacancies, how many services we were using. But again, we're just looking at where the expenses were coming from. And if you back out, and we've always talked about, we're gonna hit a funding cliff.
Yep.
That's the funding cliff. The $2 million of ESSER going away, now we have to absorb that into the operating budget.
Right, so I guess I'm curious about what happened, because before ESSER, we didn't have that money, so we clearly were paying for it out of the operating budget. And I know our budgets were tight, but I'm curious what the trigger was for these costs to be so much higher than anticipated. And it looks like earlier than this.
I was gonna say, I think some of it honestly was the recruits that were coming in, right? I think as we've all talked, not a lot of folks are going into education, never mind special education. So I think it's getting harder and harder, especially after COVID, to go ahead and find some of this talent. And because we need to service our students, if we don't have folks coming to us, applying to our jobs, coming through the door, unfortunately, the option is contract services, which we know at times can be 2 and 3 times the cost to hire somebody.
And I would also just add, and we would do a little more research. I think we had more money to add more services. And so I think we added during COVID, and then the money went away. So we'll get an extra para, like we had the extra money to engage in contract services that may or may not have exited from an IEP.
Got it. Well, obviously, we need to serve what the kids need, right? But we have to justify it as well.
I do. I I don't know if supply and demand is exclusively capitalism, but I think you look nationwide, there's a drop in the number of people going into special ed on the supply side. And then after COVID, clearly there'd be an increase in demand. And also I think there might have been a lag in identifying students who suffered drawbacks during COVID. But those two together, we saw last night, we got to hire people we got to contract out those services. So I think it's a double whammy and pretty basic.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's capitalism.
Economics.
Supply and demand.
Economics. It's been a long time since I was in school, but we're not going to talk about how many years that's been.
All right, I don't think any other green lights at the moment, so I'm gonna move forward if that's okay. All right, so this is our special education cost related to out-of-district tuition. So again, these are our students that we are placing out of district for multiple reasons. But back in 2022, we had $5.9 million as a budget. We ended up spending a little bit less than that at $5.3 million. In 2023, we had a budget of around $6 million. We spent fairly close to that. And remember, this is operating budget and special revenue combined. In 2024, we start to see that increase, right? So we ended up budgeting about $6.1 million, and we spent just over $7 million. Last year in fiscal year 25, we had a budget of $6.2 million. We spent $7.2 million. So currently we do have $6.7 million in budget available for fiscal year 26. Based off of these trends and what we've seen over the last 3 to 5 years, I expect us to be slightly higher than that. But again, this truly is going to depend on how many students need to be placed out of district, if any kiddos move in, if there's any court placements. So as of, again, the snapshot of today, we're showing a budget of $6.7 million, and we've already spent $1.6 million, or we've encumbranced funds of $1.6 million.
I just want to, again, if we go back a few slides, just for the funds and just the amount of students in the enrollment. So again, 22, 23, we've seen an increase of the number of students in out-of-district placements, which also coincides with the increase of how much we spent. Like the 6.1 to a 7 or a 6.2 to a 7.2. So, even if there's an extra 5 students or 6 students, it's not divided equally, but 5 or 6 students is almost $1 million. So just what is the cost of an out-of-district placement? So it's anywhere from $770,000 to over $300,000, depending on the student's placement. So it is a variable, but we've seen an increase from 100 students to 129 students over the last couple of years. So the increases kind of coincide with the number of students who are being serviced outside the district.
I have a question, Dr. Andrade. In previous years, did we start with much lower numbers than we finished with as far as special education out of district?
Prior to 2022?
No, like prior to this year. Like this year we have 90, and the previous year we had 124, 100. I'm wondering if at the beginning of the year we had a lot less.
So we were looking at another way to, and we just didn't have time to pull it this afternoon, almost a month by month, because students are coming and going on really a monthly basis. So the 129 students from last year are probably not the same 129 students from September through June.
All right. So I went ahead and shared a graph up there as well. Again, the blue line is budget, orange line is actual expenses. So steady increase I would say, from out-of-district tuition, but again, something we financially need to continue to plan for. This next slide shows our special education tuition revenue. So this is revenue that we bring in for some of our programs, our Brentwood program, our Signs of Learning program, any kiddos that come here from other districts that receive services. This is our special education revenue. All of the revenue does get deposited into our special revenue, special education fund. So I just wanted to highlight, we are seeing an increase in tuition revenue. So some of this tuition revenue that is coming into our special revenue account, if we continue to have students come here from other districts, some of this will help us with some of the costs that I'm sharing with you tonight. But it is something just to keep an eye on. We did bring in $1.3 million last year compared to, we roughly thought we'd bring it in about $900,000 related to tuition. In fiscal year 26, we've budgeted about $826,000 coming in. Depending on this year, we'll see that either being right around 820 or so, or it potentially could be even higher, similar to what last year was.
So how much does it cost us to run our in-house programs compared to this? Is that something, like, how does that work? Because we have particular spaces that we use for that. So when it comes to the special education tuition revenue, it all goes back into those buildings? Or does it actually come to the district for the rest that are being served? Like McCarthy has their special education systems, and North has their special education systems. All this revenue is coming from Brentwood or other special education programs that we run within the district. How does this disperse into the house, into the Nashua Public School District?
Yep. I was letting you finish. I didn't want to cut you off. So all of the tuition revenue that is coming in, whether it's from Brentwood, Signs of Learnings, or the other programs, gets deposited into our special revenue account. And then we use this money as a whole to offset contract services, special ed for the entire district, or out-of-district tuition for the entire district from a cost standpoint. So we don't go ahead and say, 1.3 million came in from these 4 programs, and we are going ahead and giving McCarthy or Signs of Learning or the intensive needs programs a certain percentage. We are using this revenue to offset, and that's the point of a special revenue account, to offset some of the expenses that are coming into the district related to contract services and special education and out-of-district tuition.
Thank you. I find this really encouraging because this was kind of the point of the investment in Brentwood. So several years ago, when Brentwood was in a different location, there was discussion about closing it down entirely because it was costing a lot of money. We didn't have a lot of kids in it. So it's very encouraging to see that when we create programs that service a need, that we are in fact attracting other students and able to serve them. So I think this is an excellent example of how investment, provides for both student needs, but also gives back to the district. So kudos for that.
And I like that Ms. Raymond pointed that out, because that's exactly where I was getting to go, because we're proud of the changes that we've made in these last couple of years, and that this is part of that even though the special education revenue had always been part of the district, we are now helping fund some of these things. And I know that was one of the major draws to creating McCarthy. Even though it started before I got here, that was one of the things that we said, this is going to be beneficial for the Nashua Public School District. And I'm glad to see that we're living some of that out. I hope to see more, but I'm so thankful that it's being spread through us all.
Yep. And just remember, the tuition budget is truly a budget that we put in place based off of some historical trends, right? The tuition that's actually come in, so especially last year, there was an additional 400,000 that came in. That's what's allowed our special revenue overall fund balance to increase, right? So if we don't have the cost to offset some of that tuition that's coming in, that's kind of that savings account that I had talked about, right? Is we do have a fund balance in our special education, special revenue account. But once it's gone, it's gone. Unless you're bringing in a drastic amount of tuition every year that you don't have expenses to offset. Dr. Andre.
I'm sorry, I always forget on this year. I was just wondering, Dr. Andre, thinking about this special education reserve fund, and since Ms. Lopez mentioned McCarthy, has there been any talk about bringing out-of-district students into McCarthy that are middle school aged? Is that something that we would be interested in providing? Is it something that other towns around us might be interested in having their children come to?
So there's definitely a need. We're not there yet. Some of it is staffing. So one of the contracts that we have in place is with Applied ABC, and that was a two-year contract with the intent that we would build a big program, and then once it's up and running smoothly, then we would be in a position to tuition in other students. They've been having difficulty staffing, so I'm not comfortable reaching out to say we're going to expand that program yet, but that is the intent. So not there yet. So we'll get there, but that's the kind of conversations that we need to have, and that's what we have the space for.
I mean, you know, coming from being a parent of a child with disabilities, the idea of sending kids out of district is always less appealing to me. But at the same time, if we can build a program in Nashua that we can be proud of, and that we can be proud that other people want to send their kids here, that would be good for the district and for the kids in the long run.
Yep. So that's our hope. Again, I think we just have to build it before we start advertising it. Just again, I wanted, before we move on to the next slide, to Mr. Gray's point. So we, again, and she can get into more detail on how we spend special revenue, but when we were very conservative on what's our tuition budget. So we would just say it's $200,000 a year, and we were only going to spend $200,000 a year, and we would, and that's how the special revenue account grew, because we were over $3 million at some point. We weren't touching that special revenue. Twofold, we had ESSA money, so we didn't have to, right? So we could actually still budget pretty low. And then what we did a couple of years ago, speaking of Brentwood, is we actually increased the tuition rate that we were charging out of district students. So we charge, I don't have the exact number, but we went from like $25,000 to almost $45,000 in tuition. So we're actually charging more for other districts to send their kids in.
All right. I think, and to Dr. Andre's point, you know, as we move through this year, it probably is going to be a conversation of, can special revenue support some of these costs that we're seeing in addition to, right, the wages of the unfilled positions. So we'll continue to do some work on the back end and have the conversations with the city and bring it forward to you folks here at the board. I just want us to be cautious, though. Again, once special revenue is exhausted, if you're not bringing money in to kind of build it back up, then what's that plan for fiscal year 27 and beyond? All right. So this next slide is all of the intergovernmental revenue that we had talked about. So again, we highlighted fiscal year 22 and fiscal year 26 on that summary page. As Dr. Andrade mentioned, our special education aid, yes, back in 2022, it was 1.7 million. This year, we're estimating to see it around $1 million. But again, state adequacy aid has substantially increased by about 24 million since fiscal year 22. So Medicaid, the top one, that is all of the reimbursements that we pull in based off of the submissions that we submit to Medicaid. We never know what's going to go ahead and be reimbursed until the money actually comes. It's a different percentage every year. So last year we got 1.1 million. State aid charter schools, we have an education freedom account, state building aid. We have seen state building aid decrease over the last several years, but again, our adequacy aid has gone up. And then we have our vocational tuition aid and our transportation. So those are our CTE programs. Any specific questions related to the intergovernmental revenue? I think just my point of really sharing this is, you know, I know there's been a lot of talk about state funding. I think we always want more, right, for our students, for sure. We want to make sure they're having an adequacy education, but we have seen an increase too, for sure.
I just have a question. It's not a lot of money, but I'm just surprised to see education freedom account aid up there. What is that?
Yep. So that is for students that elect to go to other school districts or elect to come to Nashua. So say you're a student over in Hudson and you've decided to come to Nashua, it's the education freedom cost that comes back.
Oh,
to the district.
it never even occurred to me that Nashua would
Yep.
actually receive some of that money.
Like Dr. Andrade was just saying too, a lot of it is our homeschool student population.
I have a question. Are we finding it easier to put money into separate buckets now that it's coming in as adequacy aid and not special education funding? Are you able to, like, is it helpful for you guys to be given it this way?
I think for me personally, I mean, this is year one, right, of being in this seat. But what I would say is, I think we got to try to look at it as like, what is that total pot of money at the bottom? It's increased. I think to Dr. Andrade's point, it's still unclear truly if our budget is 150 million, you know, and we're bringing in 66 million. Where's that offset from other funding sources to support our $150 million budget?
Yeah.
Without benefits.
I just wonder, I'm thinking, you know, pros and cons. The pros are we have more money to spend. Are there cons in the fact that with the less restrictions on where it goes, could we theoretically run out of special education money because it's not specifically going into that budget? Because it's not coming to us, it's going to the city and it's not being allocated as such. Am I overthinking it?
Yes, a little bit. So like the special education aid, the $1 million,
Yeah.
it's not restricted. That has to go directly back into special education. Right, so are you thinking everything's assigned or allocated to
Right,
a
and
funding source, right?
Right.
So if it was Medicaid distributions, then it goes back to offset something that was paid for.
Yes.
Right, so we just get a revenue stream
Okay.
from the city of the 62 million, or they offset it, so it's all one bucket to them. When it's broken out this way, which is nice for like Medicaid distributions or the special education aid, we're generating that data of how many students qualify for special education aid. So we're able to at least calculate how much we may be getting, depending on what happens at the state level, of how many students qualify, or if Medicaid distribution is like, what was our service logs? So are we completing our service logs? How much? So at least we can have the backup of how much we can guesstimate. Who knows what happens at the state of how many kids are going to qualify? We're going to get 70% reimbursement, 86%, who knows?
And then what the rules will be. What happened in fiscal year '24 with the Medicaid disbursements? That looks like half.
Was it because we were, I don't know what it would be from.
So again, I think it depends on service logs, so we have to go back. It was like, what was did we bill enough, right? Did we complete all that and submit the right paperwork?
Okay.
So I guess I have a question just about the numbers. So the 64 million, that's what comes here to the state, to the city from the state. So the state adequacy aid at 64 and our total being at 66, just as an estimate, is still putting us 2.1 million short.
So I think you're correct in saying the state adequacy aid does go directly to the city of Nashua. I would, to Dr. Andre's point earlier, I would look at this as like total revenue. So if our budget's 150 million. Olivia, sorry. Sorry about that. So think of our budget of 150 million without benefits, right? And if we have 66 million coming in revenue, there's still, call it 100 and, or sorry, 150, back out 66, call it about 80 million that we still need supported. So yes, this money goes directly to the city, but the city also funds SURF for us. They go ahead and give us money towards deferred maintenance. They go ahead and offset our benefits or pay for our benefits, right? And if benefits go up 12%, the city supports that. So I think that the city is helping us, of course, but this money does get, deposited directly to the city, not so much to us as the district.
So I just
I
wanted,
heard everything that you said. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, you mentioned there was a $2 million difference. So can you just clarify your question again?
So I guess I'm looking at state adequacy aid, and then I'm looking at the total. So I'm understanding that these are estimates, right? But I guess my whole point, which has consistently been my point, is if the city loans us the money for the year, because they don't get the money till a year and behind, because that's how it pays, or we'll find out which months it pays in, then why, when we know that we're gonna be short in September, haven't we made either adjustments or asked for more? Because you're starting in September in a deficit from your estimate, right? These aren't real numbers yet. These are.
I think we're getting I think I'm confused on what you're asking, because the $2 million that you're saying we're still short, where are you seeing 2 million? So the total up here of 66.5 million, so the second line from the bottom, that is the total intergovernmental revenue that we are receiving in fiscal year '26.
So this is not what's being spent.
No, this is revenue only. This has
that-
nothing to do with expenses. This is revenue only that's coming in.
Okay, then that looks different because that looks better. That looks good.
And the $2 million difference that you're referring to is the 66 million is the total of that column, and the state adequacy aid is just highlighted because that's 97% of the total intergovernment revenue. We could have put it in a different color, but that's the big,
And
the
that's
big
what I
number.
was,
But the total, if you add the 500, the 50, the 126, 1,064, 220, 2,000, that's how you get the 66 million. There's no difference between,
exactly, our total, is that enough to help us pay in the district is my overall question. Like, I mean, I'm getting down here in the weeds with the two different numbers and the 97%. My thing is, do we have enough for the budget now from what we asked for? I understand Dr. Andre just said the Medicaid reimbursements, the state and charter schools, all those things are to come. They're not actual for 2026 yet. That's what makes it an estimate.
Well, our budget is around $200 million. So we have like 66 million that's coming from the intergovernmental aid. And then we have money that's coming from the city in the form of benefits. And then we have, I think, what Mr. Ray said, another like 80 million that has to come to us. Does that come directly from the city, or is that IDE grants and stuff like that, or Title I, or?
So like just a simple math, if we have the $200 million, right? And that's what our expenses, we forecast our expenses to be $200 million, that's what was approved. So now the city needs to figure out how do they generate $200 million. So 66 million or 66.5 comes from the state, and then they contribute the other $135 million. So if our budget next year is still $205 million, and then we get an extra $15 million in state aid, then they would back out how much was in state aid, and the city would give us the rest. So that's the revenue is really coming into the city, and then they're going to offset from there. But we have our bottom line, right? So I don't want to say this the wrong way, but the revenue coming in now is really is the city receiving the revenue. Like they authorized us to spend $200 million, essentially. So that's our authorized budget for this year. Yep. The confusion, I think, this could be on me, what's hard to calculate Medicaid, right, is that it's the billing for previous years is going to be the estimate of the revenue that comes in the future that goes directly to the city. So it might be $1 million, it might be 1.1, but that's what the city has to look at their revenue as well, and it's just harder. But we have our budget, so we're safe for this year. It's, again, I think as in slide 1, is that the revenue stream is not fixed year to year, especially from intergovernmental revenue. And then it's really from the city to calculate how do they make up that difference to give us our bottom line.
I think if I can just clarify, I think to elaborate a little bit more on what Dr. Andre just said. So I think for fiscal year 2026, based off of the overall openings that we have, and once we can move some wages into contract services if it fully takes that full year. And on the flip side, if we're able to use more of our special revenue, this year might be, as of today, snapshot in time, we should be okay. But I think really as we plan in fiscal year 27 and forward, we're gonna probably need more additional money, whether it's in the budget, and we're asking for higher increases, whether it's a difference in, revenue streams and how do we bring in more. But what I want to be cautious because I don't want us to be saying today on September 9th, we're fine for fiscal year 2026. And then 3, 4, 6 months from now, we're having a different conversation and somebody's saying, well, you told me back in September we were fine. So I just want to be clear that as of today, snapshot in time, what we have from a data standpoint of the students that are here, the students identified for special education needs, our out-of-district tuition students, I think we're going to be in an okay position this year because of what we have in special revenue. But as we move forward, we're going to have to offset some of these expenses, probably more in our operating budget, because again, ESSER is gone, so it's either operating or special revenue.
And just to add to that, from last night's meeting and tonight of why we're talking about contract services or out-of-district tuition, or we're signing contracts early, encumbering the money. Because again, as we said last night, we may, typically we freeze our budget in March, April. But if we're seeing contract services and out-of-district tuitions going up, we may be saying we need to freeze our budget much earlier in the process and really have those kind of conversations so that we're not having conversations in February and we keep on spending and spending and spending, and all of a sudden we say, we don't have enough money, we have to go to the city, and the city says, why don't you didn't know you were gonna be $2 million over budget, right? So this is why we wanna be ahead of it, look at the trends, and then making sure we're transferring money to the right line. So it's, Mr. Gray's expertise is gonna be on hand, I think, throughout the year on just keeping everything in place. Because, I mean, ultimately, it is how do we service our students? And then how do we prioritize? But that also means it's one budget, not one budget just in the school district, but also in the city. And what are those constraints and how do we have those conversations of if we're going to be $2-3 million over in certain lines, the Board of Aldermen aren't going to come back and be like, oh, here's another $4 million. What are you doing prior to that, right? So that's where, again, I think it's a lot of money up front of how much we're spending, but we want to be really transparent, really be able to control our budget and have the right conversations early and often.
This is exactly what we had asked for as a board. So I want to say we really appreciate you being so open with us about this and letting us know that this is something that we need to be concerned about and that we have to make sure that the aldermen and the mayor are fully informed about the choices that are going to be coming down the pike their way. Because if they're not prepared for it and they think that we haven't been doing our due diligence, they're not going to understand why we're coming to them for money. But if anyone watches this and watches our conversations over the year, they will 100% know why we are coming to them and why we're asking for what we're asking for. So thanks.
Absolutely. All right, the last slide up here, just annual audits. So again, a couple audits we go through every single year. So we do a comprehensive annual fiscal audit. That is in partnership with the city of Nashua. We actually just finished the FY 2024 audit. A federal single audit that's almost completed. I'm hearing from the audit team, I think on Friday of this week, ideally it should be done, but the federal single audit is in partnership with the city of Nashua as well, and that's currently almost done. Student activity audits. So in the months ahead, I'll be coming forward to finance and operations to share some of these audit findings. So student activities is something we should be auditing every single year. When I stepped into this position, I did find out that we were slightly behind. So we have finished fiscal year 2023. We are in the process of finishing the student activity audit for fiscal year 24. They are scheduled to start auditing student activities for fiscal year 25 in October. So I'm hopeful by the end of December or the start of the calendar year, we'll be able to share out the audit findings related to student activities. The New Hampshire DOE does an audit every single year. We've been lucky enough to have that audit completed over the last couple years. If it is a district that is considered high risk, just based off of the amount of federal money we receive, that is something we go through. So we're in the process, we finished fiscal year 24, the financial audit, and then there's also a procedural audit with that.
Hot off the press email we got this afternoon?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So what Dr. Andre was just saying is it's definitely hot off the press. I think we're excited in the business office because I'm not gonna lie, the last 2 years, I think we've been buried in audits. I come from an audit background, so it's been a little crazy to me to hear how many audits we've had to do over the last 2 years. So kudos to the business office team and just all the staff, but we did get notice this afternoon from the Department of Ed that we are considered now actually a moderate risk for grant compliance. So next year, we will not be audited because we don't cross over to that high risk standpoint. So there's been a ton of hard work though in order to get us to that point with procedures, with documentation around just the management of the federal grants. So it's not only been the business office, it's been the superintendent and the assistant superintendent's team, as well as all of our program managers related to the federal audits.
Well, congratulations. Let the whole team know that we said thank you.
We will. And then food service. So we actually this summer just had a fiscal year 2024 summer program food service audit. As folks know, or hopefully know, we do have a new food service director this year. So she jumped right in, feet first to the fire, and went ahead and had an audit for the summer. I will share those audit results as we move forward, but it was really good. The state said, Nashua looked great. We'd love to utilize some of your best practices for some of the summer school programs that do offer food service. A couple websites up there. All of this is posted on the City of Nashua website. So once we share these reports, folks can just go ahead and click on those links. Go ahead, Heather.
Thanks. I just want to give you a huge thanks for this. I know that for myself, I'm reading all of the stuff in the news coming out about the crisis in Claremont. I know Pittsfield is in crisis, although not as bad as Claremont. And it is incredibly comforting to know that you're on it, that we have the finance meetings every month, but you've created this thing so we can all see with the links to where anybody can get the information. And for me, it's very comforting, and I really appreciate all the work that you have put into this so that we can have it, and we can have it on the website for people to see. So thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you for the kind words. It wasn't just me. I will say my data analyst helped pull some of this slide deck together very quickly, but happy to share. So thank you. Questions?
Ms. Lopez, sorry.
I don't want to say ditto, but I want to thank Mr. Gray for doing this because this is one of the things that I asked for. And I really appreciate you and your data analyst doing this for us, for the city, And I really want to thank you. I know that I ask a lot of questions and everything, but thank you.
Yep, absolutely. You're welcome. Any other questions before I guess we jump into the short finance and operations agenda? It's good. Jen? Okay. All right. Yeah, sorry, that's just the background that's on my laptop.
So we're looking at some policy tonight, huh?
Yeah, so tonight on the finance and operations agenda, this policy that is in front of everybody is truly just a starting point conversation. I'm not necessarily looking at for any motion tonight, but I wanted to start this conversation of reviewing policy DJB. When I look at other policies throughout the state, when I look at our purchasing policy, and I think about the overall increase we've seen, just everything costs more. I'd be curious what the input would be from the Board of Education on what really should be coming to the board for approval, right? So our cap right now for purchases over, it's any purchases over 10,000 comes to the Board of Ed. Some of our neighboring schools have anything from 10, 15,000 up to the high I saw was 35,000. So again, conversational, I thought 25,000 would be reasonable based off of the overall increase that we've seen, just everything costing slightly more. I think our Concord has 25,000 as their limit. But again, not saying we have to, but I'd love to have a conversation of, is 10,000 still kind of that right number? Everything is costing more than what it used to.
Yeah, if you think about, what percentage is $10,000 of our $200 million budget?
Yes.
I mean, I would feel comfortable with changing the amount. I'm not sure how the other people on the policy committee would feel. It's definitely something, would you have any objections, Mr. Claffey or Ms. Lopez?
No
or-
objections.
And you, Ms. Raymond?
Mr. Posca and I discussed this in our policy planning, and we really felt that this particular question was not in the policy wheelhouse as much as it is the finance wheelhouse. So whatever decision the finance committee comes up with, I think it could go directly from this committee to the full board and bypass policy completely. I don't know.
So I'd like to add some input to that, because I think sometimes when we're thinking about purchases, and I'm literally thinking of like the truck that we just had to buy, right? That is a single piece purchase that benefits the whole district. But I would think if we're spending $25,000 on a specific school that only benefits from it, then it would need to be a bigger conversation, right? So like the truck benefits the whole district, which I think we probably don't need to have an in-depth conversation about. But if we're looking at $25,000 that only benefits one school, whether it's because it's in a deficit, we would want to know what that deficit is. But also if it's something that's going to make it inequitable with other schools, then we would also want to be aware of that as well. So not saying good or bad, but I think anything that impacts a specific school that makes it different from another school, we would want to know about.
Yeah, and I don't, oops, sorry, Mr. Claffey, did you want to? I was going to say, one thing that I've noticed, if I can kind of share, over this last year, what's been interesting to me is we do these pretty lengthy budget presentations, right? And a lot of the departments come forward, like I'm thinking plant operations, right? They come forward with a laundry list of things. So doesn't curriculum, our tech department, all of that, right? And some of this is annual subscriptions that we do or annual services that we're doing. But even though it gets like approved through the budget process, they still have to come forward to finance and ops for approval.
Yeah, show their work.
So I'm not saying 25 is the right number or not, but how can we truly increase this policy slightly? Because 10 just seems really low, year over year. And again, it's anything over, if 25 is the new number, it would be anything over a $25,000 purchase. But I think, we could get creative and share some of the stuff of some of the purchases maybe at the school level if we want more of a granular detail. And I'm not saying 25 has to be the number.
Yeah.
I was just trying to, based off of some of the other schools around us and inflation and whatnot.
Did you have
10 just
anything to
seems
add,
like-
Mr. Claffey?
Yeah, I want to say 2 points. First of all, it's not 25, it's 15 because it's already 10. We're already saying okay to 10.
Yeah,
To say it's 25, it's really 15 because that's the difference. That's the change.
yeah,
And we already have an existing policy for 10.
Right.
And secondly, I think if I were a superintendent, I would be a little bit, if we can't trust the administration to make decisions about if a particular school needs something, I think we're tying their hands. I just think that this is micromanaging at its worst.
yeah. No, and I can see that. I think my point is more, I would want to know if there is a school that is so deficient in something that we need to make that kind of investment. I would just want to know. Not that we even need to approve it, but let's say like sometimes we see things on Facebook where people are asking for donations. And we're going, why are you asking for donations when this is something that the school should supply? If the school isn't supplying that, I'd like to know. So it's more about how can the board be more aware of the inequities amongst each school? Not necessarily, maybe we don't need to approve those finances, but I would like to know if there's one school that's woefully behind another.
Well,
Go ahead.
how many expenditures do you know of that were 10,000 or less in the past year? And
I don't know.
But I
excuse
think,
me, just you have to wait to be recognized. We've been here before.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you,
So I'm not done yet.
okay.
So do you know of expenditures that were 10,000 or less in the past year?
No.
Well, that's what I mean. So this is $15,000 more. Which,
That just sounds like a lot. I mean, to me,
It's-
who doesn't work in millions of dollars, $25,000 sounds like a lot of money.
I just think it's micromanaging.
Ms. Lopez?
Excuse me. So because we sit on finance, we see all the transfers. So when transfers come through from one school to the other for $1,000 for this, when they wanted a $4,000 projector, whatever was on the budget transfers, we did see that. So we are seeing everything under $10,000.
May I?
I think, I'm not done yet. I think that.
These
when
aren't
we look-
transfers. They're not transfers. These
Yes,
are expenses.
it's true that transfers and expenditures are two different things. But did you want to finish your thought?
So I'm just saying, I think that when we go to buy something that is at $10,000 or over $10,000, that should be something that the board knows about. I'm not saying that we should micromanage and be able to, but otherwise we won't know that those things are happening, because that is the safety practice that is put in place so that the board does know what is going on outside of this room. Because I just, that's how I feel.
Okay, I was just going to say that, I feel comfortable making this motion, so I'm going to go ahead and make the motion. Did you want to speak?
I was just clarifying. So anything over 10,000 is currently, by policy, comes to the finance and ops and to the board. And it's really, to Mr. Claffey's point, so anything under 10,000 doesn't come to the board. And so is the threshold at $10,000 or $25,000? So that's the increase. So it would be anything over $25,000 would be the approval aspect of it. So again, I think it's the $15,000 difference. Current policy is 10,000 for the approval, and then it would just go up to 25. So I just want to clarify that aspect of it.
Thank you. I just had two related maybe thoughts, tangential thoughts. One is we have another policy, and the number of the letters escape me at the moment. But it says there was a state law changed last year about gifts and donations to the school, and about how much money needed could be accepted by a principal or the superintendent, and how much needed to go to the board. And I believe that it's now $20,000 that the superintendent can approve, and above that, it has to come to the board. Without looking it up on the internet. No, I think it went up to 20, because I remember being like, this seems like a lot. And then the other, so I guess that's a question. And then the other half of that is JSSBC, there's a mechanism on that board, which is a shared board with the aldermen, that allows the chairman of the JSSBC to authorize purchases up to like $50,000, right? So I guess I think my point is I think there's precedence for this. So
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
gonna look it up. I'll put my thing on once I find it.
all right. I feel comfortable moving this ahead to the full board. So I'm going to make the motion to move policy. Oh, it says it's going to go to, should I change it to move policy DJB to the full board?
I would. I don't.
Okay.
Policy. We're just gonna talk in circles because we don't do the money stuff. We'll be like,
Okay.
what is it now? What's the rule on other things? It'll be the same questions I just asked.
Okay, so I'm going to make the motion to move policy DJB to the full board as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Claffey. And all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And all those not in favor say nay.
No, just say aye. I can't even touch it if I don't say aye.
You, what?
Aye.
Oh, okay.
Wait, I have a clarifying question, a procedural Robert's Rules question, because it sounded like you just said that if you don't say aye, you can't do anything about it later. And I don't believe that that is true, because the vote is just to move it to the full board, but you can still express your concerns to the 9 people on the full board, whether you vote about it
Yeah, you can feel
for
free.
or not. Happens in policy, or it used to happen in policy a lot, where we'd be like 3-2, and then the one person would come and be like, I don't agree with this at all, and here's why.
Did you want to vote against it, Ms. Lopez? No. Okay. All right. Okay, so the next policy, can you go over that, Mr. Gray, please?
Yep, so my understanding is both of these policies actually kind of go hand in hand. So if you look at DJB that we just moved forward to the broader board, DHA is the contract signing authority. So this is basically saying now that you've approved up to 25, or if up to $25,000 gets approved, then this second policy does need one change from that 10,000 to the 25,000. So it's page 5 in your attachments. So there's one line that just says contracts and purchase orders for 10,000. We'd strike that out and put 25,000 or more. Shall be approved by the Finance and Ops Committee before awarding.
Okay, I'll make that motion. Make a motion to move policy DHA to the full board as amended.
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Claffey. And, okay, go ahead, Ms. Raymond.
Oh, sorry, I just wanted to point out that I did look up the policy for gifts. It's KCD and KCD-R, and Dr. Andrade was correct, and I was wrong. The 25,000 that was in my brain is for specifically donations for like renovating a school or creating a lab or something. And there's a whole, that does have to come to the board, and there's a whole process for that. So that's where that was in my brain, and I apologize to everyone that I was on a ridiculous tangent that had nothing to do with anything.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, so motion pass, I'm sorry, what was that? Did you say nay, Neil?
No, I said ayes. I
Oh,
didn't hear.
did you?
Aye.
Okay. Okay, so motion passes 3-0 as well. Okay, and now just a transfer report.
So before you jump to the transfers, just one quick high level, I apologize.
Oh, that's okay.
So we have finished out the month of August. At this point, from an overall spend standpoint, of course, school just started, but I'm showing an overall spend at this point from our budget is 11.6%. That's kind of similar to what we spent last year. You'll start to see a lot more come through, right? Again, school just started. Any of those contract services or anything that was approved, you'll start to see those flow through the accounting system. So
That sounds okay to me, because that's July and August, right?
that is correct. Yep.
So if July and August, 2 months, are only 11% of the 12-month year, then we're doing pretty good, it looks like, at this point.
Yes, we'll talk about an update next month.
Okay, all right, thanks.
Can I ask a question because we're going out of order?
Of course, Mr.
We're doing
Conley.
the expenditures report now. There was a question earlier about revenue from special education and whether that revenue went into special education at the schools. And I think, Mr. Gray, you said that the revenue goes to pays for other services. But if we wanted to know how much money we spend on special education in this district, wouldn't you have to break down every teacher's salary, figure out those wages for special ed? How would you go about figuring out the cost of special education?
So if you truly are asking what is
I'm
the
not. It was
cost
brought up
of
earlier and I
special
was curious.
education,
Yes.
I would say you have to look at everything. Your teachers' wages, your para educators, anybody that services within special education, in addition to contract services, out of district tuition, transportation for the special education student population.
Nurses.
Nurses, one-to-one nurses. It would be a pretty hefty project for sure. There is a report that we can pull just for special education. But if something is covered, like out-of-district tuition is in what we call a 9-9, which is our district-wide budget. So there's a couple separate reports that would have to be pulled together if you truly wanted to know that number.
And I asked because I was wondering whether that estimated $400,000 would make a dent in the amount of money we spend on special education, that's all.
Okay,
So
transfers?
from a transfer standpoint, any questions? There's only one that I thought we should just point out based off of the cost, or excuse me, based off of the dollar amount. So it's on page 23, so it's the last one in here. And we actually went ahead and transferred some money out of contract services within our ELL department. And we gave our Welcome Center some budget line items. So that's why you're seeing a $50,000 transfer out of ELL. It's separating so that there are a couple line items set up for our Welcome Center.
Okay, so how is the Welcome Center doing?
Dr. Andre?
Actually, really good.
Oh, I'm glad to hear that.
Well,
Thank you.
we just had, I kind of chuckled because we just had a meeting on it yesterday on with the soft rollout, what's going to be our communication plan. So we'll be launching some information within the next week or so. But as Mr. Gray said, we transferred some money in, so we bought some new furniture. I have to give plant ops and the IT department a lot of kudos. So they prepared the Welcome Center at Birch Hill, just as a FYI on just how dedicated our plant ops are. So they prepared the buildings, and then during one of the rainstorms over the summer, we had a leak in the roof. Over the weekend, plant ops came in and actually put a new roof on one of the buildings. So,
Oh, my goodness, wow.
so just really kudos to that crew. But there's new furniture. What we're looking at right now Again, is working on some SOPs. Our target is around October 15th for a soft rollout, and it'll be geared at secondary families who are coming in between October 15th and January 1st. It's just easier with some secondary families to make sure things are working right before we bring in all the 12 elementary schools as well. So we want to make sure procedurally, again, it's like a restaurant with a soft opening to get everything in place. And then we'll be ready for January 1st. But the buildings look great. We ordered a new sign. But in the next week or so, we'll be putting out some communication on the procedures. So it's staffed, it's great, and there's some good energy there.
The staff is already in there?
There is, yes.
Excellent. How many people are going to be working out of that building?
So there's 4 enrollment specialists with an office manager and then some family engagement coordinators. And then at Birch Hill, there'll be also some translation services and members from the ELL department. So they're right next door to each other. And again, it's going to be an appointment kind of system. So families will still be registering online. For the most part, we'll be in contact with them, set up an appointment for the Welcome Center, process all the paperwork that needs to be in place. And then if there's any screening that needs to happen, especially in ELL, we'll have someone on site. And then the other aspect is what we learned through the DOJ settlement agreement is it's really going to clean up our data from these the families registering right at the get-go. Again, another intended benefit is that families may not have to go to 2 or 3 different schools to register. It'll be all at one location. So it's going well. So I meant to mention it last night during my superintendent's comments, but there should be a communication coming out shortly on the soft opening.
Yeah, it's really great. You should mention it next time because, it's such an innovative and like really exciting use of the our existing infrastructure. And I think it's a great idea. And I think it's going to be really good. Go ahead, Ms. Bishop.
Do we have the opportunities in there for people to sit down with laptops or computers and fill out the free and reduced lunch forms when they already have support?
Yes, we do.
Excellent.
Yay. Very good.
I had a quick one if I can. This is really, it says ESL for reasons. Is it ELL?
So in the budget.
I'm sorry I asked.
No, it's okay. In the budget line item, it actually says ESL, but it is our ELL budget population. So I'm not sure why the coding says ESL versus ELL, but it is our ELL budgeting.
So I'm going to make a motion to approve the fiscal year 26 August transfer report.
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Lopez. And any comments or questions? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. All right, so that means that the next motion is to adjourn the meeting.
Second that motion?
Thank you. And all right, so we are, let us vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and, oh, God. 7:31. Thank you. Okay, so we're adjourned at 7:31. Thank you. Thanks, everybody, for coming.